Hello, everybody. Nicole here from The Living Well. Today I have a super special guest. Her name is Maryalice Coleman. She is somebody special to me. She really played a major role in my own recovery, and I'm forever indebted to her. And so I'm so grateful to have her on today. She's an author, a coach, a mentor, a workshop leader, and a thriver. And she's been doing this for many, many years. And today she's going to share with us some insight on how we ended up with a narcissist in the first place. How do we know for sure our loved one is a narcissist, and how do we deal with it and move past it or cope, figure out how to navigate through the process. So we're so excited to have you. Thank you, Mary, for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you, Nicole. Really, really glad to be here.
So you've been a coach or you've been in this industry for a super long time, haven't you?
About
Do
27 years.
you want to talk a little bit about what you do and what services you currently offer and some of the ideas you were talking about beforehand as far as your practice goes?
Sure, sure. Well, way back when, about 27 years ago, when I started getting involved, being a mentor, and then into coaching, it was to help other women who were dealing with abuse in their life, sexual abuse, especially as children. And that was my story. So I did a whole lot of work in my own life, and I continue to, but I was asked if I would start a support group, and that's how it started for me. And then got certified. I went back and got my degree in psychology, and so and then just covering the gamut of relationships and how we get entangled with narcissists, and also helping women heal from childhood abuse. So yeah.
Awesome. So if you're interested in working with Maryalice, we will put her contact information below so that you can reach out to her. She's amazing. So, okay. So we're going to dig right in because we got a lot to cover here. So first, I was telling you about my clients and how so many of them are struggling with, one, first coming to grips with whether or not their loved one is even a narcissist. What's your opinion on how we can clearly identify if our loved one is a narcissist or not, or does it even matter where they fall on the spectrum? Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good question, because there are kind of spectrums of narcissism. And can I take a minute to describe? Is that okay?
Yes, please. That'd be
Okay.
great.
So with narcissism, it is a personality disorder, which means when it's that severe, it will never change. It's like trying to make an apple an orange or a dog a cat. It's not going to change. And let me give you the beginnings too. A narcissist is what we know so far in psychology is created. So in other words, they come into the world a certain wiring, and we're all different. But if they are neglected, abused, or even pampered, overly pampered, or a helicopter parent, fused with their wiring will create a narcissist, meaning they will be insecure all the time, and that's what they're protecting within their own life. No one can know that they're that insecure. So they develop now here are the different aspects. The malignant narcissist, the blowhard, someone who boasts, someone who has to have all the power, someone who has to have all the beautiful girls. Their looks are important. The looks of who they hang around are important. They have grandiose ideas. Their ego is beyond. And I think we've all kind of come across people that way. They never apologize. They will say whatever they want, whenever they want. They gaslight all the time. And that's a very harsh personality to have. But inside, they're protecting that tiny little ego of insecurity. But this is how they have to be. This is how they're wired. And then you have, on the other spectrum, you can have the covert type of narcissist who comes across shy or introverted, quiet, but they're self-deprecating, and then they begin to be very critical. Any kind of criticism for any narcissist is beyond. They don't accept criticism. They can never be wrong. So right there is one indication. They have no empathy. They can't really empathize with the person. They feel sorry for themselves 100% of the time. and come across as the victim most of the time. They'll wreak havoc on people's lives, but they'll try and convince you they're the victim. And so I have a little list. Let me just read a few things and maybe that will help. They're preoccupied with fantasies about beauty, brilliance, success, and power, unable to handle criticism, tendency to lash out if they feel slighted because you're hitting that, that tender spot in them. They take advantage of others. Their expectations of being treated as superior or important or they're something is really important to them. They have a poor way of self-regulating. Their mood swings, their anger is up and down. They have no remorse. Like I said, they don't apologize. And they have attitudes about deserving, they deserve the best, or how dare you treat me that way kind of thing. And a tendency to monopolize conversations and or mistreat people. So that's just a hint of some of the characteristics. Now, if you try and put that with a relationship, it's not going to work. They can't be emotionally intimate or vulnerable. They just can't. It's not going to happen. And we know in relationships, that's what builds a relationship. It's being close to one another. It's being vulnerable to one another. It's loving one another, supporting one another. It's, you're being there for your partner, your spouse. You know how to have empathy. You care about them. That's not going to happen with a narcissist, unfortunately.
Right. It's a hard pill to swallow when you love someone and you come to this realization that this person is literally incapable of having a real relationship with you or responding to any of your emotional needs at all. So you would have to basically accept that they would never be able to be there for you in any emotional capacity, one iota, which is what everything a woman wants, right?
Correct.
And men too.
And that's not going to last long. I mean, we're human and it's hard to carry on that way. Some people do out of obligation, I guess, but no one wants to be abused. A lot with narcissists is abusive, emotional abuse, I should say. Some of them do get physical, but there's a lot of gaslighting. And to understand that statement, what that means is they'll do something and you see it with your own eyes or you hear it with your own ears. And then you go back and say, well, I want to go over, you said blah, blah, blah. And they go, I never said that. I don't know what you're crazy. What's wrong with you? And they'll turn it into making you the crazy person, making you like you're the liar. So that's something that happens often. So the narcissistic personality disorder, and I mean the real narcissist, they can't, first of all, they'll never admit they need help. That's the other thing. If you could ever get one into therapy, would be a miracle. It's like 1% or something. And so if you do, now here I've talked with some therapists who are experts in narcissism. One of them had talked about they have had a couple narcissists come in for therapy. They realized they were having trouble with relationships. They didn't realize that it was them, what the problem was. So anyway, which was hard. And then if you get to that point, they walk out. They're like, oh, there's nothing wrong with me.
Yes.
There were a couple that stayed with this particular therapist. And how she explained it was, let's say here we have here's a normal relationship, okay? Up here, it's like loving, mature, emotionally connected, supportive, all the things that we desire in a relationship, willing to work on things. And then here's the narcissist. And she said, the best I could do was get him to here. And that's the best you can get.
And that probably took a long time, didn't it? There was a lot of work. You have to basically like teach them everything from scratch, right? And that's, yeah.
Yeah, it's because they don't understand. I mean, they can learn to act out empathy. They can learn to act concerned. They can pick up those cues. It's hard for them to really feel it. It's hard for them to connect with it that way. So it's possible. And if that's good enough for the partner, they might want to stay in that marriage for whatever reason, if that's good enough for them. It's the relationship that is like this. And
Yeah.
hoping, well, I'll make them change, or I'll just be loving enough, or get that out of your head. Never, ever going to happen, ever. First of all, even in a regular relationship, we don't have the right to try and change anybody. We can just be the best that we can be, and that's what's important. And usually you're going to be matched with someone who has similar values with you, and similar outlook on life, and a similar maybe spiritual growth, that's the point of being in a healthy relationship. And there are
Right.
going to be differences, that's normal. But the key is to be relatable and be willing to be vulnerable and love one another unconditionally. That's
Yeah.
something a narcissistic personality disorder can't do.
Right. And I always tell my clients, because I understand that there's, different types of narcissism. They could be a sociopath. They could have a variety of different psychological diagnoses, which we're never going to really know, are we, where exactly they fall on the spectrum, right? But what matters is how it is destroying their lives, how it is affecting them and their mental health and their physical health and their reality by the abuse. Really just boils down to domestic violence. But many women don't realize they're in a domestically violent situation. So we always start with that, helping them to wrap their head around the fact that they are a battered person. That was huge for me when I realized that.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have any like bruises, so I didn't realize, that's just this misnomer that we have about domestic violence, that if we don't have any, since it's not physical, we don't understand the other components, or a lot of people don't. But really, emotional and verbal and financial and sexual and coercion, all of that are different forms of the same thing. They just don't have the outer appearance, so it's harder to wrap your head around that concept. But
You're
it's
right.
really vital. Yeah, it's vital that they do.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. So how do we end up in a relationship with someone like this, do you think?
Okay. I'm going to give the simple answer. So because there's something I need to say about, I wanted to add on about the narcissist, is many
Yeah.
of them will love bomb you. Many of them will come in hot and heavy and give you gifts and give you compliments and take you to great dates, and just overwhelm you with love bombing. And when that happens, you're overwhelmed. And so here's the part that we play. When we come into a relationship and we are broken ourselves, and we have huge insecurities ourselves of, no one will love me enough, I'm not good enough, all these our own insecurities that we've not dealt with or looked at in our own life. That love bombing is going to be amazing. It's going to be like a drug. It's going to fill you up so much if you're not aware. So that's a big hook. That's right there is a huge hook, is the love bombing. And it might come in different ways. Some want to hook you really fast. And you might feel that inner, like, I don't know, I'm not sure. I don't know you that well. I'm not, but you think it must be great because look what they're doing. Look at the gifts they're giving you. Look at the phone calls you get. Look at the compliments you get. So we get hooked in very easily. And that's where it starts. So you get this love bombing going. This is just one aspect. The other aspect is, oh, I can change that bad boy. I can change him. I'll just love him so much he'll change. So that's the other end of the spectrum. So with the love bombing, we get entangled in this relationship. It becomes sexual way too soon, too fast. And whether you get married or not, or you stay together, there is trauma bonding that's starting to happen. And that's when little by little, the lies happen, the gaslighting happens. He's getting tired of you. He's not going to tell you he's getting tired of you, but he might cheat, or he might, spend time at the racetrack too long, or whatever his hobby might be, and give you excuse after excuse about it. Or another scenario is he'll be so wrapped up in his own power and his success that he becomes this workaholic and could care less about you. So now his work is his mistress. Um, Now, being a workaholic doesn't mean you're a narcissist, but that's one of the characteristics, because it's all important to look successful and look great. And I'm going to do this job like no other. But here's the thing, the job that they're doing, they are stepping over people. They're taking credit for other people's projects within the work situation. So that's how they get ahead. And I know that sounds so nefarious, but that's the research. That's what happens. So when we get caught up in this relationship, and in the beginning seems really pretty good, seems calm, he's kind of happy because you're under his control now, or her. Women are also narcissists, not as many. It does affect men more than women, but there are women narcissists. So you get, the thing is, you're in their control. And as long as you are believing them, and I mean, there's some very intelligent women out there that I know, very successful, who have gotten themselves into these relationships because they might have been very intelligent, but their emotional intelligence was suffering. They didn't understand themselves very well. So that hurt within them was being gaslighted and being loved bombed, if that makes sense. So it doesn't matter how smart you are intellectually, it's about how are you emotionally, and what are your thought patterns about life and about yourself, because someone else can come right in and think those thoughts for you, or tell you what you should believe, or how you should believe it, or what you saw and how you saw it. So what you saw really wasn't what you saw, or what you heard really wasn't what you heard, because they're telling you differently. So yeah, that's how we get hooked. And then the trauma bonding starts, and then it all gets crazy.
Yeah.
Doesn't feel right. You just know in your gut it doesn't feel right, but you don't have the words for it right away.
Totally. I totally had a gut feeling for both my narcissists, and I just ignored them because I wanted to be wrong. I liked the attention, like you said. I liked, the way they make you feel. It's exciting. It's fun. They're charming. They're passionate. And it just feels like the love romance of your life at the beginning, right? So, but then it takes a drastic turn.
It does, and it's so sad. It does take a drastic turn, and yeah.
Yes. So we talked a little bit about this inner work to help us identify. Did we already go over that? Was that the point of, okay, so the inner work to help us identify why basically what happens is, once we realize this person is problematic, irregardless of what their problem is, we can tell right away, this isn't going well for us. Why do you think it is that we stick around for so long and that we put up with this bad behavior?
Well, to put it simply, I think humans, we learn the hard way, and we wait till things are so bad before we'll make a change.
Right.
I would like to encourage any listener who is in this scenario and they feel it and they're beginning to understand it better, to know that, number one, you're not crazy, and that pay attention to what your red flags are telling you, your intuition, and just be ready to set some boundaries and get some help, get some coaching or counseling, and get some help how to become stronger, because something within you, it's like what I wrote about in my book, how we live by default almost all the time. And what I mean by that is, by age 5 or 6, everything is in you that you've learned from your parents, how you were treated, how abuse, goodness, traditions, birthdays, anything and everything is in you by about 6 or 7, because it has nowhere to go but in. So a lot of that, let's say you're from an abusive household. So you take on those feelings and you don't know who you are as a child except by how people treat you.
Right.
So if you weren't treated well, you're going to feel like there's something wrong with you, that you're a loser, or along those lines. And we tell
Right.
ourselves stories. And then we have coping mechanisms to deal with it. And those coping mechanisms are okay as a child, but they get embedded and we take them into adulthood and then they're not good anymore. So
Right.
the coping mechanisms become the stumbling block for us to see what the truth is about how we could live life better and how we can love ourselves better.
Right. That is so good. So true. And you know, we didn't talk about this yet, but I was going to ask you if you could go into a little bit about boundaries, because this would be a good space. Once we do figure out this person is harming me and we finally get fed up, how do we go about getting the guts or the strength to start putting down some boundaries? And what do boundaries even really look like for those that are still trying to figure out how to start getting some control over this situation? Sorry, I put you on the spot. We didn't
No,
talk
I
about
mean,
this question.
it's a mouthful. It's really good. It kind of goes back to what I just said about really knowing yourself, knowing what you came out of in childhood, knowing if you had a difficult childhood, it definitely affected you. You might not know it, but
Mhm,
your life is showing it, in other words. So
mhm.
that's one area. It's just really understand your own insecurities and your own holes. You know, we all have them in one way or another. And they'll dictate our lives, and then we live by default. And that's what I mean. We're just living by reaction, by reaction, by reaction, or tradition, or something we were told. Learning to live on purpose is a whole wonderful, beautiful thing. When you learn to live on purpose, you take 100% responsibility for your life, your feelings, your choices, and that includes boundaries. So when you love yourself, you're not going to allow anybody to put your hands on you. No way, shape, or form. You
Mm,
know, if their intent is to hurt you, they have no one is allowed to touch you. And you should be able to say, no thanks, or get out of the room, or saying no more. Now, here's the other caveat is if you're in a dangerous situation, if you are in a very abusive situation, you need to structure your exit first and then work on yourself, or do it at the same time. But I know that there are some people who are in very, very dangerous situations and they
yeah,
are being controlled, and the finances are, they don't have any control over having money to leave or anything like that. So that takes, gosh, that just takes time, and it takes a way of strategy to exit out of there. And that takes help. That takes someone who can help you strategize to do that if you're really not safe. If it's otherwise more controlling and emotional controlling, you have a right to be your own human being. No one has the right to control you. You
right,
just don't. And so
right.
it's learning to say, it's learning to know that you have the right to say, no, I won't do that, or I will do that, or I'm going to take up this hobby. They might say, you can't do that. Who are you to do that? They can't be outdone.
Right.
They won't be outdone. So if you're doing something to improve yourself or make yourself better, they don't like it one bit. And so they will have a fit. So
Yeah.
again, it's finding someone who you can partner with, a friend, a coach, a counselor who can help you and walk you through that situation. Because when you're a healthy adult, you know your boundaries without doubt. They're just instinctual. We're born with them, in fact, but they
Mm,
get knocked out of us over life.
mm,
And when they get knocked out of us, especially in childhood, we are we're great prey for the predator,
mm.
and we become codependent, and we're afraid to hurt anybody's feelings, and we'll just love them, to change them. And that's not going to happen.
Yeah. We're willing to sacrifice ourselves to make them happy.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
terrible.
Um, can I touch on something about,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, because I touched on the narcissist, how they become this way. And it's because around a very young age, from infancy to toddlerhood, traumatic things happen, abuse happens, or um, up until like age 7-ish, they're just pampered and they're not allowed to hurt. They're not, they're spoiled, in other words, in a way. Now, here's the thing. You can have, let's put like 3 siblings in this household, and one winds up a narcissist and the other 2 wind up decent human beings. Okay. They have issues, but they'll deal with it, let's say, later in life. So that is because it's the nature nurture concept. They're wired a certain way. And when that wiring is fed the abuse and the trauma, that's what happens. You create a narcissist,
Mm,
period. Um, you can have children who learn narcissistic behaviors because their parent, one or two, both parents are, so they might learn narcissistic characteristics, but doesn't mean they're narcissistic. There's hope
mm.
for them. There's hope for
Good
them.
to know.
Yeah, yeah. But
Excellent.
yeah, so you can even be engaged to or involved in a relationship with someone who might have characteristics,
Right,
but you see empathy in them. You see that they have that glimmer of life and hope and love. So it's just a
right.
matter of them getting therapy to change.
Some of the bad habits they've
Yep.
picked up. Right.
Mhm.
So what about falling on the spectrum? Does it matter where it's, so is there like a, how do you explain the spectrum phenomenon? Is that something that you agree with or?
I don't know. There are, let me put it this way, there are nice narcissists. They're
Mm,
charming, they're engaging, they're delightful, they're funny, they're the life of the party. You love to be around them because they make you laugh, they make you feel good. So on a social level, they're fine, In a relationship behind closed doors, forget it. It's not going to happen.
yeah,
That tendency of the narcissist will always be to protect themselves first.
right. Yeah,
So there's that spectrum. Um, and a lot of people in Hollywood are like that. They're great,
yeah.
they're funny, they're hilarious, but they have to have the spotlight. Now, not every actor and actress, I used to live in LA. I was around a lot of actors and actresses, beautiful people. A lot of them are wonderful, but I must say some of them are just narcissistic. They need the
Mm,
spotlight. That's how they get the jollies in life, and they're good at what they
mm,
do. Um, and then you have, like I mentioned earlier, the malignant, which is just, you just see them coming a mile away. You just step out of
mhm.
their path because they're horrific to be around. They're,
Right.
yeah, they're boastful, they're egotistical, they lie with every breath, and they do it with a
Mm,
smile,
mm,
they're convincing you of something.
mm.
And they're boisterous and they're gaudy and they don't have a filter. They'll say what it, I think we all know,
Yeah.
come
So
across
it's like
that
they
person.
either have they have traits of narcissism or they're a full-blown malignant narcissist, right? With the personality disorder, right? Okay.
Correct. Yeah, but don't, there is the covert, which comes across more quiet, but they are
Right.
definitely narcissistic. Yeah.
Yeah. I know of one very, very close. I won't say who, but I definitely know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So the age-old question I get from my clients over and over again is, okay, I think I'm pretty sure, because it's pretty clear once you come to terms with what, the personality traits are of a narcissist. Plus, once you become educated on the symptoms and how it affects your life, right? The gaslighting, stonewalling, giving you the silent treatment, never being able to come up with an agreement, never taking responsibility for their actions. Those are pretty clear telltale signs. But once a woman or a man finally comes to terms with that, then a lot of the times they realize they can't change them, like you said. And so then they have to leave in order to get some kind of semblance of peace in their life.
Yeah.
But then I get a lot of clients who come back and say, well, leaving and he's begging me to stay. He swears now that I'm going to file for divorce and he'll do anything. He'll go to therapy. I don't know what to do. I'm so confused. What would be your advice to them?
I,
Or, what's your
I would
opinion on that?
say that's love bombing.
Mm,
That's just another way of love bombing. If they're truly narcissistic, that's just their way of love bombing, and it's a control technique. And um, that's just what it is, period. Now, like I said earlier, we as human beings kind of learn the hard way. So some people might want to stick it out and try it again and give it another go. And it's just a cycle of trauma bonding until you get
mhm,
sick of it. And all I can say is you're going to know when you know. I just hope
mm.
it's not too late or that there are children involved. 'Cause
Yeah, and there's physical ramifications, right? You get PTSD-like symptoms, you end up with anxiety, depression, a whole host of cortisol flowing through your body because you're stressed out all the time, which also now, causes inflammation, causes health issues.
yeah.
So they're suffering in the meantime, and it's really a
Yeah, it
sad thing.
affects one's self-esteem and self-worth.
Yeah.
Very much so, because you question yourself and you wonder, it been there. So yeah, you question yourself, you're not sure. Did I say that really? Did he say that? It's like that whole gaslighting, mental craziness that goes on in our heads. And it's not
Right.
fair. It's not fair to anybody. I want to say when children are involved, it gets sticky because if you separate, there might be drama. But if you have the right help, the right attorney, the right support through family, friends, whoever, coach, counseling, you can get through it. They'll bluster, make noise, go crazy and everything. As long as there's no physical harm going on, obviously. They might make a lot of noise, but in time, they're going to go on to something else. They'll
Right.
get bored of all this and go on to something else. But you just
Right.
want to make the best for your children and make sure they're safe and taken care of and of course there's co-parenting, so you have to deal with that. If you have kids,
Right.
they'll always be in your life. That's the thing.
Right. Had that too. So just to be clear,
Yeah.
is there any hope for these guys? Okay, what if they're not full-blown narcissists and they only have narcissistic traits?
Well,
What would you
if
tell them?
I would say in that case, they're going to be more open to therapy. They're going to be more open to wanting to get the relationship strong and to deal with issues that come up or communication issues. Then they might have that little bit of selfish streak or whatever that they learned from their parents when they were young, but they're willing, and they don't always act like they have to have everything and be the one and they're God and they're the only ones that are right and that they control everything all the time. It's a fine balance, but I think you can usually be able to tell if they're willing to give a little bit without anything in return. That's an indication. You know what I mean?
Almost never. I know of some narcissists in my own life that would keep tabs of everything they ever did because they were like, I mean, they even used the term, I want to get my money's worth.
Oh yeah,
Like,
I
it
know.
was
I
unreasonable.
that's what's always within them. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And we can have, I think, a little bit of empathy toward them because it's hard to be in their skin if you think about it. It's a
Mhm.
24/7 job to have that energy to protect that empty fort is what I say.
Mhm.
They don't even know who
Mhm.
they are. They don't know what their identity is. They just know they have to be a certain way, look a certain way, perform a certain way. They go into debt in order to look the part. They'll say and do anything. And if you don't fall in line, all hell's going to break loose.
Yes, totally. They'll do whatever it takes to get their needs met at all costs. So a lot of the times in my own experience, when my narcissist was begging and pleading me to come back, I always realized that this was still not about me. right? Because it was
Exactly.
because they were losing something they wanted. So it's
That,
still all of this grandiose representation of their feelings was really about how they were losing something themselves, and it really had nothing, because somebody that's really loves you will try to do whatever it takes to keep the relation, keep you from feeling like you have to leave in the first place, right?
yeah.
Not push you to leave, force you by such terrible behavior. And then when you finally go, they're like, wait, wait, wait. I swear, 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 I love you. Please don't go.
That's
Just
a
to get you
good
back in line,
That's a
right?
good point, Nicole, because it's never
Yeah.
about you.
Yeah.
It's there. Here's an example. I knew someone very, very well, and her her husband was one of the charming, delightful, handsome narcissists. But but behind closed doors, it just was not working, and he would have affairs and go on and on and on. And so she finally got help for herself and had her boundaries and was like, I can't live like this anymore. So we're going to have to separate. And he wouldn't. So she took it upon herself to do it. And she got a moving truck. And so the day she told him, gave him heads up, this is what I'm doing. I'm leaving because this is not working. And this was many years of marriage. It took her a while to get to the point of really going, oh, I've got to live differently.
Mhm.
So the day that she was waiting for the moving trucks to come and to get her stuff, she had organized a place to move to, and he pounded on the door or on the back. I forgot where he was. She was describing where he was standing, but he was pounding on the wall saying, and he's yelling, F you, I've lost control. I've lost control. I can't believe it. He said it out loud.
Wow.
He screamed it out loud and blaming
Wow.
her for it. So
Because
that's
he
how bad it
lost
was.
control.
He lost control
Wow.
of her,
And it was all her fault.
of his the the look, oh, didn't they have a wonderful marriage, and the look of what they had and everything, and he lost all of it,
Yeah.
but blaming her for it.
You said earlier, I think I cut you off too, but I wanted to kind of just touch base on that really quickly. You said they really need you to believe that at this moment. So do you think they're lying in this moment when they're trying to get you back, promising you the moon and stars? Or do you think they really mean it, but they just can't deliver? And they need to convince you. What's your take on that?
This is my take,
Yeah.
is they're losing control.
Mm.
They can't do it. And so they're desperate. They will say anything and do
Mm.
anything to keep you if it's making them look good. If
Mm.
having you in their life makes them look good and not like a failure, they will
Mm.
say and do anything. It's that love bombing approach. They'll now if and I think a lot of people get caught up in that and go, oh, okay, okay, let's work this out. But they'll never go to therapy. They won't really, within a week, things are back to how they were.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah. So,
It's the
it's
check,
'cause
it's the cash check. It's the check they write that can never be cashed. That's how I tell my clients. It's
it's
like,
so true. And it's
yeah,
sad. I mean, it's
yeah,
sad. I don't want to make them out to be these horrible monsters, although some of them are because of the atrocities they can commit. But
yeah.
basically, they're like, I see them as just lost souls because,
Mhm.
so to speak, like, who am I? Where am I? Make me important. I've got to look important to be somebody. They can't be alone. Usually they're never alone. Um, so they always have to have somebody in their life to make them
Right,
look good or have sex with, or, go somewhere with to look good. It's all about them. And that's the sad part.
right.
And that is hard for
Mhm.
people to understand.
Right.
All about them,
Mhm.
period.
Yeah. Okay.
That makes sense?
Yes, it really, really does.
I mean, like I said, they'll say and do anything. They'll give you gifts, they'll love bomb you, or you'll be in the wrath of them. And that is
Right.
horrible.
Yeah, I feel like once they've come to realize you're definitely not going to fall for it, then the mask falls all the way off. and they
Correct.
just let the monster release. I've
Yeah.
seen it many times. So
Yeah.
we can feel sorry for them, but not at our expense,
No, no, no,
right? We want to
no,
feel
no,
sorry
no.
for them, but we want to do it from a safe enough distance so that they don't destroy us in the process. Because it's like a bully, a child bully on the playground. You know, obviously the child's a bully because of whatever's happening to them at home, probably, or what's happened to them, and they're
Correct.
acting out because of that. So we feel sorry for them, but we don't sacrifice the other innocent children and tell them, oh, well, you know, he has a bad home life, so it's okay if he, you know, trips you and you bleed, you know, you fall and you scrape your knee. No, you have him removed, you have him get support, you have him, you know, you give him over to the higher beings, the higher people at being in charge, which would be the adults, right? And
Exactly.
let them handle it. You don't try to
Yeah.
fix them yourself
You
as
can't.
an equal child, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't fix them. Gosh, there's so much more
Yes.
I could say. I know your time is limited, but there's, we kind of touched the tip of the iceberg, but
So how about the heart? So you have a woman
yeah,
or a
it's
man
just,
who's in love with them. How do you, so we understand it here. How do they convince their heart that they have to let this go and reconcile that enough to really get the courage
I would
to
say it
let
would,
go?
yeah, I would say it would take some talking through, like, what are you loving?
Mm,
What is, are you in love with an ideal of it? Are you in love with the love bombing of it?
yeah,
Um, because you, and do you have self-love? Did you come into this relationship not fully you, which again, so many of us live by default. We don't even know what we're doing or how we're reacting, or where everything's just right at the surface, and
yeah,
not do the deep digging into our own psyche and our own self, and love ourselves enough to be the best that we can be. Because when you are, you won't be duped. That's
right.
the thing. You won't be duped again. Now, some
Yes,
people will go from one narcissist to maybe another narcissist because they haven't quite done the work, the inner work. But
right.
um,
That's exactly what happened to me. I
mhm.
was like, it's fine. The narcissist is gone now. I'm a good person. I'm good to go.
Yeah,
I was wrong.
yeah, yeah,
Because you know nobody it's intense, especially after you've dealt with the narcissist. You're overwrought, you're already feeling pretty bad about yourself. The last thing you really want to do is go within. Obviously you can't do that right away, but later, you before you get into another relationship, I totally think that you need to, like you said, deal with your own inner demons to figure out why, when bad things started to surface, did I not walk away right away? What was it in me that kept putting up with mistreatment?
right.
When he did, you know what I mean? When the abuse started, why didn't I put my foot down and walk out? Why
Yeah.
did I taking it? That's the question we all have to find out and then deal with that.
Partly, yeah, partly it's because of our own insecurities, but it's
Yeah.
also subtle, isn't it? It starts small. It starts little
Right.
by little until you're a frog in a boiling pot. You know, you put them in cold water and slowly, it gets hotter and hotter. It's like, by then there's confusion set in, your own self-worth is depleted, you're confused, you're not sure, you know, though, you don't want it to continue like this because you know
Right.
better, you
Right.
know that that's not love.
Right.
We don't
I
abuse
tell
people because we love them. That's not love.
right.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes. And you can't love your abuser out of being an abuser, right? It's just not going to happen.
that's
It's
not
so
going to
good.
happen, not going to happen.
So we convince the heart by really thinking about this and meditating on and accepting the reality of our situation, accepting this person has a problem that's bigger than us, that we're not capable of fixing for them, that's bigger than them, right?
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's bigger than them. They don't even realize it though. That's the thing. It's like I said,
yeah,
it's like calling making a cat a dog. It's not going to happen. They
right,
they they don't even know. They're for sure, especially if they're really in the narcissistic personality disorder um so strongly, because it is a personality disorder. What people don't understand psychologically, in psychological terms, is when something is a personality disorder, it won't change. That's
Mhm.
it. It's in
Mhm.
stone. Like I said,
Wow.
some might learn how to be nicer or learn to think twice before they speak, or, if they're willing to learn. Like I said, about 1% are. So,
Mhm.
if they want to adjust their behavior, but it's not going to adjust their personality, because
Right.
that's their personality. Yeah.
Yes, and I think if anyone dealing with a person like this works through this cycle of abuse, after so many times, you have to accept that this is what it is, and it's not going to be different no matter what they say to you. And you have to step over their words and watch their actions and accept that they may keep telling you they're going to be different, but it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
It's a rough place to be. And when that awareness hits you, you're like, oh my gosh, it's
yeah,
it's kind of hard. There's some grieving to it, but you know what? There's a lot of strength and there's a lot of love involved in it too. So that's the good part. That's really the good part. Yeah.
right. And for me, I realized that I was attracted to this individual because you were going to touch on that attraction, that magnetism between the two.
Mhm.
But I realized that I would dismiss other people that had better qualities because I had not recognized my own contribution to that reality. And that I was picking individuals that had this disorder because of, like you said, my default programming, because I was used to it.
Yeah, it's what
So,
you know.
yeah,
It's familiar. It's the familiarity of
right,
most of us who are attracted to people like that grew up in homes that were lacking, and so we lacked. And so there's that magnetism there. A lot of
right.
empaths, a lot of people, um, who are just empaths, do you know what I mean when I say that, who are
Yes,
sensitive in
right.
life, are drawn to narcissists. They are like
Mhm,
magnets, thinking, oh, I can change them.
mhm.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah. Have you
It's
ever
better
seen
to
one
be in
change?
a it's better to be loving yourself,
Yeah,
doing work, enjoying your life, and wanting a relationship, not needing a relationship. Those are
right.
two different things. Yeah. When
So
we're needy,
good.
we get stuck, we get in trouble.
Right. Yeah. We don't want to be in a position of desperation. It does make us. And that was one of the most important things that I think I did in my recovery is learn how to be alone for the first time in my life and build a
Yeah.
life I loved.
Mhm.
And even though I did end up in another a relationship with a covert narcissist, it was easier for me to get out because I had a whole life I built that was happy. I knew I could do it on my own. I knew I would still find enjoyment and joy and fulfillment outside of the relationship. So I could let it go and not feel destitute or like I was going to, have this inner loneliness I couldn't deal with, right? Which
Right.
is a lot of
Right.
stories. Yeah.
And the thing is, we tell ourselves stories about loneliness. It's not as bad as, not loneliness, but being alone.
Right.
We think it's absolutely horrible, but if you enjoy yourself, you enjoy your life, it's
Right.
it's great.
Right.
There's something you said I wanted to say, something came up. Oh well, I can't think of it now, but something came up and I forgot it. It slipped right out of my mind.
Well, this has been very, very helpful.
I'm
And
glad.
like I say, you've been doing this for a really long time. No doubt you've seen many narcissistic relationships. And so when you say what you say about never seeing one that was ever successful in changing,
Mm-mm.
they can take that to the bank.
Take it to the
This is a
bank.
check they can cash.
Exactly. It's like I said, even the professionals,
Yeah.
this is as good as it's gonna get. It'll
Yep.
never be this. So if you're happy with that, so be it, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Oh,
I
you're welcome.
really, really appreciate it. And I know it's going to help a lot of people. So we are very grateful. And hopefully we will have you back again. That
Oh,
would
I
be
love
really
it.
nice.
Thanks,
Thank
Nicole. I had
you.
such a good time, and it's a huge topic. We both know. So we touched on
Yes.
some good points. I hope that are helpful. Yeah.
Yes. Thank
Good.
you.
Oh, you're
Okay,
welcome.
everybody. We'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in. Bye now.